My name is Deneen Diamond. I'm here from the Center of Excellence for Health. We are so excited to have our very special guest here today. The work that I'm doing today is kind of partnership with Trisha Berry here at EECD and looking at the career pathways and what those look like. For everybody. The gap year is something that certainly is something that should be spoke about, should be discussed and promoted with students across the province for sure. And Michelle's going to speak just to that. So I'm just going to introduce Michelle really quickly, and then we are going to hand over the show to her. Professionally, Michelle is first and foremost an educator and youth advocate. She believes youth hold a superpower in innovative thinking, provide incredible value to society, and it's our collective responsibility to listen, make space, and empower youth voice in all areas. Michelle has taught grades 4 through college, developed international service learning programs, nurtured educational partnerships with school boards from coast to coast, and developed youth policy. Having a finger on the pulse of the needs of young people, combining their need for experiential learning and developing reflective and values aligned practices, she founded the Canadian Gap Year Association to raise the profile of gap year as a solution to mental health, financial need, career education, and filling the skill gap. Michelle also values her role as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, aunt, mentor, volunteer, and active community member. So, without further ado, over to Michelle.
Amazing. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm just going to put myself on spotlight so everyone can see me. Wonderful to be here. Wanted to say a big hello and thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone who's coming out to learn a little bit more about gap years. This really is my passion. It's something that I love to talk about. It just lights me up every single day. So I hope I can pass on some of that excitement to all of you. So you'll notice beside me right over here, these are my slides. So we're going to be going through some information over the next little bit to help you become a little bit more familiar with the gap year pathway and what that looks like. So I'm going to start with a pretty bold statement here that we really stand behind, that taking a gap year is the best way to prepare yourself for the real world. We're always talking about the real world and what that looks like. And a gap year is a really great stepping stone, that transition out of high school into something else. Sometimes we need that little buffer zone. We need that little bit of time to figure things out. And a gap year can be a really great tool for that. But you'll notice this little subtext down here, with proper planning, it will not be a wasted year. We know that's one of the biggest fears, is that this time will be wasted, that you'll be left behind. But really, if you are intentional about this time, it is a wonderful opportunity for so many young people. So let's all get on the same page here. What is a gap year? This is the definition that we like to use. Some important words in here is that it's intentional and purposeful, and you're going to be moving yourself forward towards some sort of goals, whether that's personal, educational, professional, and you can do it in any myriad of ways. So working, traveling, volunteering, doing new hobbies, learning new skills, whatever that might look like. Now you'll notice it doesn't say it has to be 12 months. You'll notice it doesn't say it has to happen after high school, directly after high school. And you'll notice it doesn't say you have to travel. And I think those are three misconceptions. You can take a gap semester, you can take a gap year, you can take a gap 2 years. Really, it doesn't have to be that 12 months. And people take it at all different times. About 70% of the young people that we work with at CanGap take it right after high school, but about 30% start some sort of post-secondary journey and then choose to take a break and do something else for a little bit and then return back to whatever that pathway is. So really, those are things that I want you to just know and keep in the back of your mind as we move forward. So this is what I look like pre-COVID. We've got a whole bunch more hair, but I was once upon a time a high school teacher, and now I am fully in the world of gap years, and I really, really love it. And I work for the Canadian Gap Year Association. So we're a national nonprofit. That means we help students and families and educators from coast to coast to coast, helping them make decisions about their gap year and get information about it. We do it in many different ways. We host information sessions like this. We have a wonderful podcast if you're into that, a great YouTube channel. We have lots of downloads on our website. So if you need a place to start, the website is where to go. You're going to find tons of information here, but really just know we've got your back. We are here to help you every step of the way, and we do that for free. We are a nonprofit. We do not make more money or less money if you choose to take a gap year or not. We just want you to be informed, and then if it is the right decision for you, have the best gap year possible. So my promise is to get through tons of information over the next little bit and make sure you have the information that you need. But what I need from you is I need you to be here, be focused. I know it's very tempting to have our phones and all the little buzzy things that are happening, but if we can just put those aside for a second and be ready to take some notes, because I'm going to share some really cool opportunities with you that I'm sure you don't want to miss out on. So that's where we're at. Now, the first decision a lot of people have to make is whether to take a gap year or not take a gap year. And sometimes I like to talk about going off to school or doing this kind of direct transition into something. I kind of equate it to like a grade 8 dance. Often everybody's doing it. We don't really know why, but we're all going to do it because everybody's doing it. And it can feel awkward and it can feel like not the right thing for you. But sometimes we get swept up in that narrative that everybody goes to university right away. And that's not necessarily true. But the flip side of that is that we are sometimes comparing it to a gap year, and you kind of feel like this little dog over here where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. What is a gap year? And really, if you're going to make that decision to take a gap year or not, we need to be comparing apples to apples. Because on one hand, if you're considering more school, you kind of know what that is. It's pretty comfortable. There's classes, there's tests, assignments, instructors. That's very familiar and comfortable. And we as humans like comfort. And we're comparing it to a gap year, which is often just a blank page, like an anything. I don't know what I'm going to do. And if that's what you're comparing, you're not necessarily going to be able to make the best decision. So we need to fill this blank page with something. And I'm going to go through some examples over the course of this presentation. Let's talk about kind of what society says about taking a gap year. They say the society we often hear, everybody goes off to school right after. And the truth is, and this is a pre-pandemic number, 24% of Canadians take time off before going into post-secondary. A more recent study has shown it's up to 33%. So a third of all students do choose to take some time. And those who do take a gap year, they go into post-secondary afterwards. If that's your pathway, they get better grades. They're more likely to graduate in fewer years, and they're more likely to get a job right after they graduate. And what that means is during your gap year, you're gaining all of this experience, all of these things that you're learning about the world, and you actually take those with you when you go into post-secondary or into the workforce. And so you've got something that people who didn't take a gap year didn't have. So your resume is better, your life experience is more robust, and that allows you to focus on your studies in a different way with a different perspective than those who transition right out of high school into post-secondary. Now, Instagram will give you another vision that you need thousands of dollars and you need to travel the world and see all these amazing places on your gap year. But that's not necessarily 100% true. There are so many things that you can do on your gap year, and travel is just one of them. Travel is a great opportunity to see the world, to gain different perspective, to build independence. All of that is very true. Most Canadians will spend a little bit of their gap year traveling, but it's not like what we often think, that you strap on a backpack and you head around the world for an entire year. It looks a little bit different for most Canadians. So let me give you an idea of what are some of those other things that you could possibly do. Now, I've got a whole list here beside me, so I'm going to give you some examples of each. First of all, we often think of these top three as the first things: traveling, working, and volunteering. Those are kind of like, if I ask someone what they're going to do on their gap year, those three usually come up. And those three are wonderful opportunities, and they can be done on 3 different geographies. So each of these could be done locally. So you could stay at home and you could visit around your own province. You could work at something, a local place, a local supermarket, or a local coffee shop, or whatever it happens to be, and you can volunteer locally. But you can also go somewhere else in Canada to do those things. Maybe you've got an aunt or a grandma or a family friend that lives in another province, and maybe you want to go and work over there or volunteer or travel and go see them. You can also do all of these things internationally as well. So I'm going to talk about working abroad in a little bit. The next thing is start a business. If you have been bitten by that entrepreneurship bug, you can start a business on your gap year. There's lots of funding available out there for you if that's what you want to do, lots of support. If you want to become a content creator, if you want to start a lawn care business or a child care, there's so many things out there that you could get into. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like an AI startup, like looking to sell something for $1 million. It could be something smaller than that. But if you're into that tech side of things, by all means, go for it. You can work on a major project. That's next on my list. So this is something that would take up more of your time than you would have if you were a full-time student. So for some people, if they know they're going to maybe potentially go to do something local and they're going to be living at home, some people might want to work on refinishing their room or building something in their parents' basement, the place that they could live for the next couple of years. Other people are into mechanics and they might want to buy a beat up old car and tinker with it, get it roadworthy, and then maybe drive it across the country. That's the type of major project that we're thinking of. But you'll also see the next two here: save the planet, get political. So many people are interested in social justice or environmental justice or politics. Your gap year is a great time to get involved in some of those things that you really want to sink your teeth into, whether that's your career or just something you're really passionate about. This is a great time to get involved in those types of things, and not only to make an impact on the cause, but also to gain a ton of experience that is really going to help you learn about yourself and how you want to move forward in life. Really great opportunities. Next on my list is to build a network right there. So on your gap year, maybe you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life or your career that we always hear, but there's opportunities to actually get out there and speak to people who have different jobs and have different experience and learn about them. So many young people will come up and say, Michelle, I want to be an engineer. I say, great. What does an engineer do? And they have no idea. And so having that time to go out and have informational interviews. And this is when you reach out to someone and say, can I just pick your brain for a little bit? What do you do on a daily basis in your job? What kind of schooling did you need to get here? How many years did it take you to get to where you are today? And asking those questions about their job can really help you understand, hey, I really want to be an engineer, or you know what, I really want to be a chemical engineer, not a civil engineer. And this goes for all areas. And I think one of the things that we don't realize is how many different jobs are out there. So the more that we talk to people, the more that we expand our knowledge on how many different types of careers there are out there. It's not just doctor, teacher, lawyer, firefighter. Like there are so many things out there. You can get clarity on your future. Again, if you have maybe 5 or 6 different pathways that you're interested in, go out and volunteer in them. Talk to people and figure out if those are actually things you want to pursue, and understand and investigate what are the paths that are going to take you to that direction. Definitely learning a new skill is kind of top of the list for so many people, whether this is learning a language or learning how to code or learning a musical instrument, maybe something super, super practical like getting your driver's license. All of these elements can be great new skills that are very practical, but it could also just be fun. Maybe you want to develop the best cinnamon bun recipe in all of New Brunswick. Whatever that skill is, this is a great time to really work on it and develop it and explore different things that have been of interest to you. So I always say a gap year is a great time to like scratch that itch. So something that's always been in the back of your mind and you've said, wouldn't it be neat if? And you can get out there and try and test those things. The last one I want to touch on quickly is our working abroad. So there is an incredible department within the government called International Experience Canada, and they will help you to work abroad. So if you are looking to work on your gap year, but you want to do it in another country, International Experience Canada can help you get the visa that you need in order to be able to work legally in other countries. We're partnered with 35 different countries around the world. You can see a little map here of all the places that you could go and work on your gap year. And the neat thing about this is that these visas are available to people between the ages of 18 and 35. So even if on your gap year it doesn't feel like the right fit for you, maybe you're not quite ready, you could do this on your summers. You could do this after you graduate your next stage in between jobs. This is something that is going to be available to you for a really long time. And so you can go to the International Experience Canada website, or you can just jump in and Google it, but you can see it over there, canada.ca/IEC. Really, really great opportunity to work abroad. Now, sometimes we hear from our parents or from maybe our teachers or people who don't really understand the gap year pathway that maybe you're not going to get into university, maybe you won't go back, that a gap year is going to make you lazy, or maybe you have these fears yourselves. But I'm here to tell you that that is not necessarily true. If you look at the studies, if you are looking to go off to school after your gap time, the statistics are in your favor. Between 81 and 90% of people who take time off do return to post-secondary. So the numbers are very, very, very high. So there is a very strong likelihood that you will get in afterwards. Now, the other concern is this going to impact if you want to go to school again? Now, there's something that you can do in many schools, which is called defer your acceptance. So in grade 12, you can apply to university or college. And then when you get accepted, you can ask to defer your acceptance. Now, each school is a little bit different and sorry, I should explain what a deferral is. A deferral is when you ask for them, you say, you know what, I would really love to come to your school, but I'm not ready to come September 2024. I would like to come September 2025. And the school will say yay or nay. We would love to hold a spot for you, and you are registered and ready to go 1 year from now. And now each school is a little bit different about how they do it. They can be quite liberal and very welcoming, like UBC here. You'll see the very first bullet point. If you're planning to take a gap year, they will defer. Down below, this is a university in Ontario, and I really like it because down here, it says residence and scholarships. If you are going to be deferring your acceptance, also look at deferring your scholarships and any guaranteed residence that you might have been granted. I think it's really important that we do that. Now for you, you might be thinking that you're going to be behind all of your peers. You might feel like this poor little brown dog. All of your friends are going off to school, going into the workforce, heading off to apprenticeship, and you're taking a gap year and maybe you might be feeling left behind. Now, let me tell you that is not true. I will tell you a month or two into your gap year, your friends are going to be saying they wish had a gap year. I like to call a gap year a leapfrog move because when you take that intentional pause before going off to the next step, you figure life out. You figure out who you are, you figure out a little more how the world works, and you figure out what steps you want to take. So while your friends might be making a direct transition and going really quickly, you've paused, you've thought about it, and you are going to be able to move forward faster. You're going to save years of your life. And maybe perhaps you might even save thousands of dollars because you're going to make better choices about how you want to spend your time and money to get to the destination that you've had time to think about. Now, I've been doing this for over 15 years now, and I have met one person who has regretted their gap year. Everybody else uses these words every single time. Best decision ever. And it comes out of their mouths all the time. So when I'm in person, people pull me aside, and these people are 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old, and they say, Michelle, my gap year was the best decision. I made so many memories. I learned so much. I figured things out, and I have no regrets about this time. So, when we are looking forward, when we are looking into the potential of a gap year, it can feel really scary and uncertain, and we can be very intimidated by the idea of doing something different, doing something that maybe is the road less traveled. But I can tell you, looking backwards, once you're out the other side of it, you are going to be so glad that that was a choice that you made. And as long as you are thoughtful about it and you are thinking about what those next steps might look like, is such a valuable experience. Now, let me tell you that planning a gap year does take some thought and some time to figure it out. A lot of other processes are pretty simple. You fill out an application and then you pick 2 or 3 courses, or you apply to jobs and then you show up and they do the training for you, or you head into an apprenticeship and you get the training that you need for your job. A gap year does take a lot more decision making because you are literally moving from an environment where they ring a bell, tell you what room to go to, what seat to sit in, what book to open, what questions to answer, and if you got the answer right or wrong. And you're moving into perhaps a gap year where you get to make every single decision on how you spend your time, what you do, who you hang out with. And that can be very overwhelming. So you do need to be aware that it is going to take some research and it is going to take some time to figure all of those pieces out. But know that we at the Canadian Gap Year Association and your teachers, we've got your back. There are lots of resources out there that will help you to make those decisions, that will help you discover all of the different things that are possible on your gap year. And even we can help you with that transition out of your gap year into the next stage of your life. So it really is a wonderful opportunity. And I highly recommend that you, oops, that's not the right slide, that you check out our website for all sorts of really great resources. So if you're worried that your parents might not be on board, we've got a download on how to talk to your parents about taking a gap year. If you find a program and you're not sure if you can do it, give us a call. We have free 30-minute calls for anybody who wants their questions answered, whether it's should I take a gap year or not, or whether it is what programs should I get involved in, what experiences would be interesting to me. We will take into account what you're interested in. We will take into account what your budget is, and we will take into account what your plan is after your gap time. Now, as a side note here, money always comes up as a big question because we have this idea that everything on your gap year might cost a lot of money, when the reality is that there is something for every budget. So if you have tens of thousands of dollars just sitting around, there are programs out there that are going to cost that much. If you have $0, there are free programs that are paid for by the federal government. If you need to make money to pay for your school or a house that you're saving up for or equipment for your job, whatever that is, you can work on your gap year and find opportunities to make money. So you can have a very valuable gap year regardless of the budget. If you have more money, it does not mean you're going to have a better gap experience. So it really is something that everybody could benefit from. So I've given you a lot of information at the moment. And so I'm curious if there is an opportunity for some questions. Is that a
Abs-
possibility?
Absolutely, Michelle. Thank you so much. That is a lot of information, like you said, but I do want to open the floor and the call to any questions, especially from students that are listening. There are quite a few students that are on, which is so lovely. And this does give you an opportunity to speak to an expert about a gap year and be selfish. Ask questions that you want to find out the answers to, and you have this beautiful professional right in front of you that could probably help answer the questions. One of the concerns that I know I hear, I was an administrator for years in a large high school, was the piece about sometimes maybe the folks at home not supporting a gap year. So it's nice to hear that the gap year has some tips and tricks on how to have that conversation with the folks that you're talking to from home. So I'm
Yeah.
just going
And I
to
think it's really important that quite often as students, we assume things about our parents. We assume that they're not going to be supportive. But in fact, when we do bring that conversation up and we have the confidence to have that conversation, you'll be surprised at how often they will be supportive. And I definitely recommend that when you are approaching this conversation, you start with your why do you want this time? Why do you need this time? Why is that important? Because it's much harder for your parents to say no when you say, listen, I'm burnt out. I'm really struggling right now. And if I go directly into school, I'm probably going to flunk out and waste your money. And if you approach it from that rather than like, hey, Ma, I need a year off, you're going to get a different response. So if you can really connect with what your why is, and help to communicate that to your parents, that can be a really helpful tool to help them get on board with it.
Awesome. Now, I also think too is that you want to think about what you're passionate about. And sometimes at the age of 18 and 19, we don't really know what we're passionate about or what we want to throw our feet into and our heart into with our jobs. And it's very important to love the work that you do. And if that's not something that's speaking to you right at 18 or when you graduate and walk across the stage and you automatically know what you want to do, that's okay. And that's why this is such a lovely option. I'm almost 50 years old and I still say I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, because there's so many different options out there, especially for young people today. And I do think that having the time to explore those options and maybe dipping your toe into different experiences and volunteering, it's just such a beautiful experience, and to take that opportunity to just explore it for sure.
Yeah, I sometimes use the analogy that a gap year is your risk-free trial on life. You know those like mattresses that you can order online? Nobody would try it if you couldn't send it back if you didn't like it,
That's
because
right.
you have to sleep on it every night. And it's kind of the same thing with the career. Once you kind of have gotten 4 years of schooling under your belt, you kind of feel stuck with it. But if you have this opportunity to go out and explore and test and try, and if you don't like it, you send it back and you get another chance to try something different. It can feel really nice to have that freedom, and have that permission to just experiment for a bit.
Absolutely. We have a question from Andrea McGinnis. Go ahead.
Hi there. I've got about 20 students here from Woodstock High School. I'm wondering if you have some recommendations for some exchange programs, like is going on a Rotary exchange something that they could do for a gap year?
Yeah, there's lots of different programs out there that provide exchange type experiences or volunteering within Canada or abroad. So Rotary is just one of many. There's other programs like Kitimavik, which is a free program through the government that allows students to do an exchange kind of within Canada. There is a program called, now the name is escaping me. Experience Canada. They have opportunities to do exchanges within the country as well. Lots of volunteer organizations that are out there that would allow you to do like an internship or a volunteer placement in a field of interest for you. So there's lots of different opportunities out there. So you can jump on Google, see what is out there, and see what opportunities are available. We also have a list on our website. So if you're looking for something specific, you can jump on and there's a filter where you can actually search by certain criteria that would help you find the experience that's right for you. So I'm hesitant to give you specific ones because everybody's looking for something different. But if you do have something specific in mind, please feel free to book a free call with us, and we can make those really specific recommendations. Great question.
And I know Trish put in some great resources in the chat as well that's directing people to your website. So some of those questions can be found, or answers can be found there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any other questions for Michelle? Or thoughts? Well, one of my thoughts is that I wish I would have taken a gap year.
Hindsight is 2020.
And what's interesting is that a lot of post-secondary are now recommending students to take some time and think about and not. I think you spoke about scholarships and being in the dorms and those types of things. I know that would have been a concern of mine because I was on a scholarship to go to school. Like, does that continue? Can I take my gap year? And I know that a lot of establishments and a lot of post-secondary are now supporting that if the gap year is part of your plan, then you certainly would be eligible for those same scholarships and programs and accommodations for when you're done your gap year.
Yeah, it's only going to make you a stronger student, and so the schools are starting to come around to that. They were fearful that they were going to lose you, and now they're realizing that no, they're actually coming back as better students and ready to learn on a whole new level.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just going to say thank you so much for all of the teachers and students that are listening. Certainly stay on if you'd like to stay on and ask Michelle a question on your own. You're more than welcome to stay on. We'll stay on for a couple extra minutes. I am going to be putting a survey right in the chat for teachers to fill out. That's just to give us some feedback around the session that Michelle offered today, and helps for us to collect how many students and teachers and all of that good stuff, just so that we have that information for when we do another session, hopefully in the future with Michelle. So without further ado, I am going to stop the recording, but certainly feel free to stay on. Michelle and I will stay on for a little bit. And thank you so much from the Center of Excellence for Health. We really appreciate you being here. And Michelle, you are an absolute gem, and we're just so appreciated to have you here in New Brunswick. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.